This is Chris, the Idaho Painter, here on Paint Live TV. Today I got with me
Journeyman John.
And today we're going to show you how to repack an airless spray gun. One of those important steps. And how do you even know if your spray gun needs to be repacked, John?
Well, if you're starting to have issues with your gun leaking after you've released the trigger, where a little bit of paint or especially water, because it's thinner, is going to be coming out, that's a pretty good sign that the packing's getting loose and that you're going to start having more spits and more issues with your gun.
So now we're going to walk into and step into cleaning the gun itself. We got a contractor 2 gun, some simple tools that we're going to need. We got them lined out right here. John, why don't you go over some of the tools we're going to be using today?
So obviously we've got our repacking kit. So we've got both a Graco authorized official repacking kit. We've also got a knockoff here from our friends in China.
And what's interesting about these 2 packings is here's the knockoff, here's the Graco one right here. If you go to your local paint store, they think these things are made out of gold and titanium.
They are. They just don't know it.
They charge a whole lot of money. You can jump onto eBay. I tend to get these knockoffs from eBay and they've worked for me. I've never had an issue with them before. Today we were started repacking with this one right here, and the threads were a little bit longer on this one. We haven't determined whether there's going to be any issues with it, but I've never had a problem, and they're really, really cheap. Probably 3 times to 4 times cheaper, these China ones. If you like buying stuff, well, they're probably all made in China, but this one has a Graco label on it. So there you go, you pay more money for it.
One of the things to think about when you're repacking the gun is, you know, if a repacking kit is about $75, start pricing out how much is a new gun, and if you can get them on sale, sometimes it's not even worth repacking them, but it is still good practice. So
yep.
The tools that we have, we've got a series of nylon, brass, and steel bristle brushes because we are going to be cleaning the gun while we're going through this. We've got a 1/4 inch and 9/32 inch wrench to take the hinge on the trigger off. There's a better term for that I can't think of. We've got a 10-inch crescent wrench. We've got a smaller flathead screwdriver. We've got a new filter for the gun. We've got a toothbrush in case, again, we want to get in there a bit tighter than some of those nylon brushes can go. Always good to have a hammer or a rubber mallet with you as well. And then we have a hinge pin maneuver, which we're going to use to knock the needle out of the gun when it comes time for that.
And all these tools, these are typically the tools that you'll need to repair or repack any gun. There might be some slight differences here and there, but typically these are going to work. They're just simple tools that typically everybody has in a toolbox.
Also a 5/8 wrench.
5/8 wrench. So to start off, we got the gun right here. One of the most important things when putting the gun back together is squeezing this trigger when you're screwing this little mechanism on the front right back on. Otherwise, you're going to scratch the ball that is seated inside there. It's going to scratch it and then the gun will leak. So even when taking it off, when I'm doing any repairs, I always squeeze the trigger just for good habit and good measures, and sometimes these things are on pretty tight. But the first thing, got the trigger squeezed, and the trigger squeeze is really, really important if you're just cleaning the gun and then putting it back together and not putting brand new packings. But what I've noticed, if I've ever taken this gun apart to clean it, and if it wasn't leaking before, it's going to begin leaking after you clean it. And one of the reasons why is the ball, if you've used it for any period of time, the smooth ball, just the grit from the paint, the abrasiveness of the paint will eventually wear grooves, and that ball will have a certain seat to it inside there, and you're going to be moving that slightly, and then it will leak afterwards. So if you ever take these guns apart and you think you're just going to clean them, put them back together, more than likely it's going to leak afterwards. So front part comes off right here. We've got the needle exposed right here. I'm going to remove the rear of it, and then on the rear of the gun, there's a spring right here on the back. And I'll pull this off right here. And one of the other things we typically have is a bucket. I used to always use just a can. I put all my parts into a can. And one of the cleaning solutions you can use in years past, I used to use lacquer thinner or Reducer 54, which would clean it really good, but you need gloves if you're going to be handling any of those chemicals, because it can absorb into your skin and it's really hard on your liver. So this thing comes out, there's a spring, this back comes off. Now the needle's fully exposed. We now just use simple green when cleaning our components, and it's environmentally safe, and you can get it on your hands. It is good practice to use gloves, but we're not using them right now. So now the next step, I've got the front of the gun removed, I've got the back of the gun removed. Now I've got to take, there's a pin that goes right through the needle assembly itself. There's a wrench, we've got a 9/32 and a 1/4 inch wrench. I'm gonna put one on each side and just unscrew. One holds it still. The other side we'll use to unscrew it here. Let me get that off. So, usually I will take and put it in a vise. For the sake of doing this video, I'm doing it inside here. If you set it in a vise, it's a lot easier just to hold on to the gun. Now unscrew this. Here we go, get that off right here.
And your repacking kit's going to come with 3 different pieces. It's going to come with that new front end, it's going to come with a new needle piece, and it's going to come with a new rod that's going to go through the handle, and that's going to be what pulls the needle back, which is what Chris just removed right there.
So now I've removed that, and I'm going to just take and strike the back of the needle assembly, and see if I can just struck it with the hinge pin remover. It just freed it a little bit, enough for it to pop out, and there's the needle assembly right there. Now we can remove the gun filter. This just unscrews right here. So now you've got the top of the gun, and then we will remove the filter. This one, the filter wasn't in there, so there's no filter in the gun. Typically there'd be a filter in it, but the filter's gone. And so now we'll just take, dip, and soak these components in simple green. We'll start cleaning them out. Once they're all clean, we're gonna reassemble it with the brand new packings.
So now that we've gone through, this is a great opportunity to clean all of these pieces. We've soaked them in Simple Green. Like Chris said, you can use something like Lacquer Thinner Reducer 54. Simple Green's a little bit nicer on your body,
innards,
hands, the environment. So it just takes a little bit longer. But we've gone through, we've got the head of that guy all cleaned, and we'll start putting the rest of the pieces back together.
We've got the body, the lower end, the handle right here. So we've got our new repacking kit is right here. So it comes with the front end right here. It comes, here's the needle assembly, and then the new pin that goes through the needle assembly. So I'm gonna screw this back together. We don't have the filter. You wanna typically stick a brand new filter in there. I don't think we have a brand new one. So we'll just leave the filter out for right now, but we'll get a new one and stick the filter in there. So I got the gun. I like to put it back together with the handle so I can hold on to the thing. The first thing you're gonna do is just stick your needle assembly back in, and it kind of just fits. You'll look through there, it fits right down inside there. It's gonna pop through, and it's gonna stick through the inside of the gun it's about a 1/16 of an inch. You'll see it stick through, and you're gonna have to push a little bit, make a little compression, push it on in, and you'll feel it kind of like pop and seat on there. You don't want to do it on a hard surface, anything that could possibly scratch that needle, or you're gonna damage your packing. So I've got a nice plastic table right here. I've got a rag, and I'm just gonna push it down slightly, and I just felt it pop right in place. And now that's the needle assembly's back in there, and then you begin doing the next step, and we'll take and run the pin right through, just pop it right through. You can look through to make sure that it's all lined up. I can see the hole is lined up right there. We'll just pop it through. I'm gonna screw these things together, and that's where you're gonna be using your 1/4 inch and 9/32 wrench. You can use, in the past, I've actually used just crescent wrenches to do this, but these are so tiny, it makes it easier if you have the actual size wrenches. I'm gonna screw this together. I think this entire process, I can do a gun, clean an entire gun in about, if it's real dirty, the whole cleaning process, repacking and everything, I can do a gun in about an hour. So you're gonna have to determine whether it's worth it to buy a new gun or repack it. So I think the repacking kits are about $75. You can typically buy a gun How much do you think we've been paying for them in the past? A lot less than that.
Yeah, usually you can get a gun between $100 and $125, depending on if you can get it on a sale or some sort of deal, and that's gonna help save you some money. Like you said, you just kinda gotta decide what's your time worth and the hassle of potentially having to deal with it.
I want to take, John's got some TSL. I typically will lubricate all my threads before I start assembling everything, lubricate them. That way, if there's any paint residue or anything that's going to cause it to stick, the TSL will keep it lubricated, keep anything from drying and sticking. So I'm going to put that back together. We'll take and put our spring back in.
And your spring has a little stopper that's going to sit inside the spring, and then that's going to go against the needle assembly. You'll put that back casing on, take your 5/8 inch wrench and tighten that in. And that's going to be what gives pressure to the needle set as it comes against the front end of the packing kit.
So now the important step, I'm going to pull this trigger back, and that's going to pull the needle and seat itself back, so when you're screwing this on, the needle doesn't get scored when it hits the seat.
Now, pro tip, so you don't have to do it twice, you want to make sure you put the handle on before you thread that in, or you're going to do it multiple times.
All over again. I can't tell you how many times I forgot to put the handle on in doing that. So now I'm going to thread it on, pulling the trigger the whole entire time. Going to screw this thing back together. Don't over tighten it. Get it just nice and snug. Put my handle back, locked back in place, and there's the gun. Ready to go.
So overall, that probably only took about, really only 20-30 minutes to go through. Once you've got all the tools assembled, everything kind of in front of you, a lot of times what we'll do is just save up a couple of guns through the season and repack in the wintertime, or when we've got some downtime, go through, take care of those pieces, and you can put these guns back into rotation.
Once it's all assembled together, I like to drop some lubrication on the threads right here where the hose attaches. I'll drop some lubrication there. Not sure how long I'm going to use this gun, but I'll squeeze the trigger, drop about 3 drops of lubrication down inside the needle assembly, work the needle assembly a couple times, typically drop a couple down on my pin right there, and that gun is nice, lubricated, ready to go, back in action.
So thanks for watching, thanks for joining us here. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell so that you can find out the next time we come out with more tips, tricks, reviews, anything you're going to need for painting.
If you have any tips or tricks when it comes to repacking guns or maintaining your guns, leave them in the comments below. We love to hear what you have to say sometimes.
Most of the time.
Not all the time, but we are interested if you got good tips and tricks. As we always say, hopefully we see you on our next video.